Somewhere in your kitchen right now sits one of the most quietly studied disease-fighting foods on the planet, and there's a good chance you've been preparing it the wrong way your entire life. The tomato. Something so ordinary, so common that almost nobody stops to ask why researchers have spent decades studying its effects on aging bodies specifically. But here's what most people never learn. The way you cook a tomato, the form you eat it in, may determine whether it does almost nothing for you or whether it becomes one of the most protective foods you consume as you get older. Stay with me, because what you're about to learn might completely change how you shop for produce. Let's talk about what makes tomatoes so uniquely important as the body ages, because the answer lies in a compound called lycopene. Lycopene is what gives tomatoes their deep red color, and it belongs to a family of compounds called carotenoids, known for their powerful antioxidant properties. As we age, our bodies become increasingly vulnerable to something called oxidative stress, a kind of internal wear and tear caused by unstable molecules known as free radicals. These free radicals damage cells over time, contributing to everything from cardiovascular disease to certain cancers to the visible signs of aging itself. Antioxidants like lycopene work by neutralizing these free radicals, essentially acting as a defense system working quietly in the background of your body every single day, whether you're aware of it or not. Here's where it gets interesting, and where a lot of people have unknowingly been missing out on lycopene's full benefits for years. Most people assume the healthiest way to eat any vegetable or fruit is raw, fresh, straight from the garden. But with tomatoes, research tells a strikingly different story. Lycopene is bound tightly within the cell structure of raw tomatoes, meaning your body can only absorb a relatively small percentage of it in that form. Cooking, however, breaks down those cell walls, releasing significantly more lycopene and making it far easier for your body to absorb and use, which means the tomato sauce simmering on your stove or the tomato soup you might casually associate with comfort food could actually be delivering considerably more protective benefit than a fresh tomato slice sitting on your sandwich. And this is where something particularly compelling comes into focus. Multiple long-term studies tracking older adults have found a consistent pattern. Those with higher lycopene intake, particularly from cooked tomato products, showed measurably lower rates of certain cancers, most notably prostate cancer, along with reduced markers of cardiovascular disease. Researchers believe this happens because lycopene doesn't just neutralize free radicals randomly throughout the body, it appears to concentrate specifically in tissues that are especially vulnerable to oxidative damage as we age. Think about that for a moment. A compound found in an ordinary tomato may be doing targeted protective work in exactly the areas of your body most at risk, quietly, consistently, meal after meal. But there's a second layer to this story that makes it even more relevant specifically for aging bodies. As we get older, chronic low-grade inflammation becomes increasingly common, often called inflammaging, a slow, persistent inflammatory state that contributes to nearly every major age-related disease, from arthritis to heart disease to cognitive decline. Lycopene has been studied specifically for its ability to help reduce these inflammatory markers, working alongside its antioxidant properties to calm the kind of chronic background inflammation that tends to intensify with age. Populations with diets naturally rich in cooked tomato products have shown lower levels of these inflammatory markers compared to populations consuming primarily raw or minimally processed produce, adding another compelling reason why the humble tomato deserves far more attention than it typically receives. Here's something else worth understanding because it changes how you might think about pairing foods together. Lycopene is fat-soluble, meaning your body absorbs it far more effectively when it's consumed alongside a source of healthy fat. This is part of why tomato sauce cooked with olive oil isn't just a matter of taste or tradition, it's biologically strategic. Whether or not the people preparing meals this way for generations ever understood the science behind it. A tomato eaten completely dry without any fat present delivers only a fraction of the lycopene your body could otherwise absorb. Something as small as drizzling olive oil over roasted tomatoes could be the difference between barely absorbing this protective compound and absorbing it in a meaningful, measurable way. What makes all of this so significant isn't only the biology, it's what it represents for people navigating the realities of aging. There's often a quiet anxiety that builds with each passing year, a growing awareness of vulnerability that wasn't there in your 30s or 40s. Every new ache, every family history of cancer or heart disease, every doctor's appointment carries a little more weight than it used to. And in that space, there's a specific kind of relief in learning that something as accessible and inexpensive as a tomato, prepared the right way, has been quietly studied for its ability to intervene in exactly the biological processes driving so many of those fears. This isn't about believing that tomato sauce alone prevents cancer or eliminates heart disease risk, and no credible research would ever suggest something that simple. The body is complex, influenced by genetics, environment, and countless lifestyle factors working together. But understanding that specific everyday food choices can meaningfully support your body's natural defenses isn't false hope, it's useful information, the kind that turns an ordinary trip to the grocery store into something with real purpose behind it. None of this replaces regular medical screenings, professional guidance, or necessary treatment for anyone already managing a health condition. Lycopene isn't a cure, and tomatoes aren't a substitute for medical care, but they represent something valuable, a small, consistent, evidence-supported choice that puts a little more agency back into your hands, especially at a stage of life when so much can feel outside of your control. Think about how you've been eating tomatoes your entire life. Raw, in a quick salad, maybe an afterthought on a sandwich without ever considering that cooking them and pairing them with a bit of healthy fat could be unlocking significantly more protective value than you realize. Sometimes the most meaningful health decisions aren't about finding something new and exotic. They're about finally understanding the full potential of something that's been sitting quietly in your kitchen the entire time. So tell me, did you know cooked tomatoes offered more benefit than raw ones? Or is this the first time you're hearing it explained this way? Drop your answer in the comments because I want to know how many of you are about to start cooking your tomatoes a little differently.